This is the project from which I'm using the waist triangles. This is the snowball block right here. It's makes such a nice secondary design with a 9 patch. So I kept all the corners of the snowball the same, but the 9 patches are scrappy. So it kind of makes it look like a three-dimensional baby's block right in here. Instead of using seam guide tape, I like to use this little angler that a friend found for me. It has little guidelines that I make sure I line it up exactly with the needle and the needle plate. So I tape it securely to my machine. This center line, when making waist triangles or corner square triangles or cut-off triangles, whatever you call, you line up the square exactly on the corner of, you line up the little square exactly on the corner of the big square. Then from point to point, you line up the point under the needle and the center line on the opposite corner. And I sew about a needle width toward the part that will be cut off. Oops. And then you just aim from corner to corner, keeping that in line with the marked line on your table. With seam guide tape, you have to make sure, I'm not exactly sure, so you're not skewed from one side or another. Don't pull that tape while you're laying it down, and you should be fine. I am using about half the amount of seam allowance. I just trim those squares off, or those triangle corners off, and then worry about them later, because when you're using scraps, you have a main project you're working on. So go ahead, focus on that. And oh, see? Oh, now I see I did something wrong. Dang it. As I'm showing some of these cutoffs that I sewed together, you'll see that some of the seam allowances are very minuscule. But when I made these, it was just, I wanted to sew, I didn't know what to sew. So I sewed all my triangles. Oh boy, there was a lot of sews in that sentence. My triangles together, trimmed them, and then they were ready for whenever I was ready. The only thing is I pressed the seams all to the same side. And now there's many different things you could do with these. You could make like a broken dishes type pattern, and that might be cute for what I'm going to do too. That would be a neat center of a star. But I thought these would be star points, so I was just I was imagining them like this, and then an 8-pointed star with another scrappy block in the center. So in order for them to nest, I repressed this seam flat, and then I pressed half of them to the yellow. So I just chain stitched them through. Then I pressed to one side. You can see here. pressed to the yellow, pressed to the purple. I pressed to one side, then I pressed open. It seems to work better that way. Then I just arranged them on a design board, those pairs. And I still wasn't sure what I was going to use for the corners, so I thought I'll just go a little bit darker than the center, or than, you know, this background of those flying geese. And then I have different scrappy purples from my 3.5. These were trimmed to 2 inches. All these little squares, when I sewed them together, it equals 3.5. So I reached in my 3.5 inch container of scraps, had all these squares, and these are from my 2 inch bin. It's a little bit messy now from digging, but this is what my 2 inch bin looks like. I just kind of pile them up to the side, and then when it gets out of hand, then I kind of colorize it a little bit. So these are all scraps so far. Oh, here's my 3.5 inch bin. I saved some strips. This is after I'm cutting yardage. I cut whatever's left into usable amounts, and these are all squares. There was just a little bit left from a strip or something, so I have squares. That's where all these parts to the star come from. And then I just assemble by rows, and it's ready to put together. I have a few made. I think I like the ones with a little bit of teal in the center. I have an idea for the background, and I think the teal would stand out a little more. Here are some of my first iterations of a design I was thinking of. Then I thought, let's make the bigger center square, and then the smaller stars leave from there. So then I have this. Now I'm still debating what would the center look like. More like that as a star, I think appeals a little bit better. That's interesting. I think that's a little better. It's kind of like the eye dot one or two. Then I thought the black background would be more dramatic with the stars, with the stars through the night sky. I think I'm going to go with this one. You'll probably be like me and find that some of your strips are a little bit too short to be very useful in this method. So I oftentimes, like this one will add a lot of character because the stripes go different ways. It's the same fabric. When they're scraps, line up the best you can. These are both 1.5 inch strips, but you can do this with regular pieces too. You might have to trim them. Here you can see I just need a little bit more, and I often save the cut off triangles. Here I must have been using my specialty ruler and I have a little bit extra, and I just need to cover that, so I'll just show you. So you kind of just test it to make sure it'll cover. So save bigger pieces and 2.5 inch strips or bigger squares to use for the corner pieces on your blocks. When trimming the blocks, I look at the diagonal between the two colors and line up the 45 on the ruler right on that seam line. Look around the perimeter of the ruler to make sure all your seam, the ends, all your seam ends are at least hanging over a little bit. Oops, see here's a little bit shorter. So then you should have enough extra you could slide the ruler up or down. Then look around again to make sure you have everything, all the seams contained within that 6.5. And then because some of the seams are a little bulkier, I pull everything away to make sure that my blade did cut through those bulkier seams before lifting the ruler. See, everything's away, and there you go. Then I usually do trim quite a few of those, go to the, take them in my go bag for a project when we're driving or something, and then I just pull these apart. And sometimes I go just along the seam to loosen it a little bit. And if you're worried, remember, if you don't do a 1.8 or 2 on your digital machine, stitches, a narrower stitch length, they're going to maybe rip your seam apart, pull on the seam threads. So do a small seam stitch length, excuse me, and then it just is perforated. The paper just peels right off. And just for extra care, I hold a finger along the stitches and pull sideways or peel it up. You just have to find a method that's right for you. They even have pens now. I'm not sure if it's a sponge tip or what, but it's filled with water, and you can run it along your paper to soften the paper and then peel it away. I haven't used it, so I don't know how that works. So that's all the tips I have on that now. I hope that helps. But I have a whole stack to trim, and then we'll see how many I have and lay it out.